In the last few weeks, both Senator John Thune and Congresswoman Kristi Noem have traveled the state to connect with constituents in live forums. For the second time in 2 weeks, Congresswoman Kristi Noem came to Rapid City, this time to host a town hall meeting, and Liberty Today's camera was there to bring you some highlights. Kristi's Friday afternoon town hall meeting was attended by more than 60 and included seniors, business folks, and even university students. Mrs. Noem's PowerPoint presentation outlined the progress made and the challenges we face in D.C. Her passion for bringing South Dakota values to the halls of Congress was evident to all present.
The one thing that you don't hear people talking about very often is that as previous Congresses have always passed a bill for a year or two or done something short-term, what was done in this bill was permanent. We don't have to come back and have conversations about those lower rates in another year or two. We don't have to go back and live in fear of the fact that the death tax was going to go up again. We don't have to worry about the AMT tax conversation coming up again because permanently it was fixed. Permanently, the capital gains tax is going to stay at 15%. Permanently, the dividend tax was going to stay at 15%. Those are all real big wins, and one of the things that I think we need to really recognize was a big change for Congress. That there was fortitude and a willingness to make these decisions and make them permanently, and it's something that I've really been fighting for. These short-term extensions just end up putting us in a situation where we give an administration all the cards because that's where law is headed anyways. When I travel across South Dakota, the vast majority of senior citizens that I talk to that are on low income, they rely so heavily on their Social Security. A lot of times the only little bit of extra money that they may have may be dividend income that comes in from a local co-op they're a part of or some small investment that they have. That dividend increase tax rate was going to be devastating for them. As we've seen the Fed and the Secretary of the Treasury arbitrarily hold interest rates low, what that has done is kept their returns low and made it even tighter for them to manage their monthly business or budgets when they're facing putting food on the table, paying their electricity bills. That's been a real concern for a lot of seniors as I've talked to them the last couple of years. The fact that they're getting such low returns and then we tax them at even higher rates was going to be very hard for many of them. And so that's why I was glad to see that we were able to keep those dividend tax rates low.
We heard that Congress has actually cut discretionary spending in the last 2 sessions.
But when you look at the dynamics of our budget change, you recognize that there's no way to really get towards a balanced budget. There's no way to really get our deficit spending under control unless we can find agreement on that mandatory spending.
Listen as she speaks of the real issue behind the deficit crisis.
This is our current debt today. And for any of you who have been following our debt situation, you can see that it is increasing. When I was talking about this back in 2010, Booker was responsible for $47,000. That was his amount of the share of the debt. Today it's over $50,000. And he's not very happy about it because he still doesn't get an allowance. But I will tell you, for me, this is a moral issue. The way that this federal government is operating and spending money, our current generation is not making any good faith effort to pay it back. We're not living like we have any kinds of a plan to change our ways. We are anticipating that we are expecting our children and our grandchildren to pay off this debt. And it's not right, and that's why when you hear me talk, and you hear me talk about priorities at the federal government level, I'm going to always talk about the need to get towards a balanced budget. I will be the first person to say that Republican presidents have deficit spent. They have spent more money than they've had irresponsibly. And Democratic presidents have spent more money than what they brought in and deficit spent. But if you look at the pace that we're on today, it is very clear to see that we are reaching records at the amount of money that's going out the door and how fast we're accumulating the debt that this country has today. It took 43 presidents over 200 years to accumulate $6.3 trillion worth of debt. In the last 4 years, we've accumulated over $5 trillion. That is a clear indication that the time for action is now, because the next 4 years, we simply can't continue down that path and keep adding that kind of debt.
Here are Kristi's thoughts on the gun control controversy.
A lot of proposals that have come forward. We've got bills, and the president certainly has come forward with some proposals that he's had. I'll tell you that in about 4 or 5 days' time, I got 14 different letters or emails from South Dakotans. 99% of those South Dakotans told me to protect our Second Amendment rights. Fundamentally, any conversation has to come down to our constitutionally protected rights and make sure that that's our priority. We've had a lot of tragedies in this country, and we want to do all we can to prevent them. But I also believe that we need to have a conversation about other factors, about our mental illness and our reporting requirements for that. It's already law that if you've been found to be mentally deficient or if you've been institutionalized, that is illegal for you then to own a firearm. Problem is that we have a lot of our states that don't report that to the FBI background check, so that information isn't available. Some of those laws need to be looked at and evaluated and see if we can streamline those so that it's actually possible to have that information when you need it. But beyond that as well, we have a culture of violence that we've perpetuated in this country. And that needs to be talked about and discussed as well. So I haven't seen a proposal or a bill come forward that I would support as of yet. I'm certainly willing to have the conversation. I think we've got a lot of laws on the books right now that we need to enforce already without creating new laws. But I certainly, my priority is going to make sure that we protect our Second Amendment rights.